Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Who stepped up the most in the Wolves' second straight win without Anthony Edwards? Bones Hyland plays the hero. It's upcoming next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Happy Monday, everybody. Hopefully you had a fantastic weekend. The Timberwolves won a pair of games over the weekend, and both of them without Anthony Edwards, who's been out with foot soreness, also without Mike Conley. Today we're going to break down Wolves Kings on Sunday. I'm going to hit you with the three big things off the top. We're going to talk Bones Hyland. We're going to talk Naz Reid. Rudy Gobert left this game early due to personal reasons. So actually a pretty impressive win for Minnesota, even though it was against the Kings. They did a lot of things really well in this game. So we're going to talk. I will do three big things, a couple of other kind of ancillary items. We'll get into individual studs and duds. But a lot of Bones Hyland, Naz Reid talk in this one. We'll get into some Jaden stuff and some rotation things as well, as there always seems to be that with what Chris Finch has been up to lately with the rotation. So we're going to do all that today. Big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. All right. So setting the stage, the Timberwolves had won Friday night at Golden State without Anthony Edwards. An awesome close to that game. Just a really fun game back and forth. And overall, coming into this game, Minnesota had won 6 out of 7, was looking for a second straight win without Anthony Edwards, who was questionable earlier in the day, but ultimately did not go. Of course, Minnesota really with only 2 games in an eight-day span because of the NBA Cup stuff. Remember last week, they just played Monday, Friday. So they played Friday, Sunday. Now they don't play again until Wednesday. So Ant could get from last Monday until this Wednesday off. So 8+ days with no games. I'm sure that's what the Wolves are thinking. So no Ant in this game. No Mike Conley, who missed a second straight game with the Achilles tendinopathy. I think I'm saying that right. With the Achilles injury. And then Rudy Gobert left early in this third quarter in this game due to personal reasons. Sounds like just based on the chatter on X that perhaps he's having another kid. I don't know. It's speculation. But personal reasons, Rudy's out. And as of this recording, it hasn't been officially reported what it is. And Rudy had been played pretty well, missed a lot of free throws in this game, but was a big part of what Minnesota was doing defensively to try and limit the points of the paint for a Kings team that isn't great at that anyway. But I thought Rudy was overall playing well on the heels of a super impressive game in Golden State, a 20-10 plus double-double on Friday night. And he leaves in the third quarter with, I think Minnesota was still down at the time. And the way this game was unfolding, the Wolves were down 7 at the end of the first quarter, down 1 at halftime, and then use a big third quarter. We'll get into that a little bit. And then, actually we're only up 1 early in the fourth quarter as well, but then really kind of overwhelmed the Kings on both ends of the floor in the fourth quarter. It's ultimately come out with a 14-point win, but it was certainly touch and go for a little while. And we're going to dig in a little bit on what happened to that, why this was such a close game. But I want to start with my 3 big things. And we have to start with Naz Reid. So in the wake of Rudy Gobert leaving in the third quarter, Naz had to step up, and he basically played the rest of the game, if not the entire rest of the game from that point forward. He finished with 35 minutes played off the bench, 20 points, 11 rebounds. So he turned in his own 2010 game after Rudy did that on Friday in Golden State. Naz was 7 of 12, 4 of 7 from outside the arc. And a couple of those threes were extremely timely. He hit one in the fourth quarter as Minnesota was, I think it took it from like a 2 to a 5-point game midway through the fourth quarter. It was a really pivotal point, and he knocked it down. Again, 11 boards as well, which was massive. Gobert had 12 boards in just 20 minutes. And the Kings are a team you have to out-rebound, and Minnesota did by 12. They only gave up 4 offensive rebounds. The Sacramento is just kind of a husk of a team right now, which is crazy given all the talent they have, but there just isn't much front court there with no Domantas Sabonis. There's nothing you're worried about in the front court. Maxime Reynaud may end up being a nice pro. And Precious Achiuwa is a fine rotational player, but Minnesota had to dominate the paint and the glass, and they did that in this game. Plus 12 on the glass, And ultimately, they were we're going to come back to this later, I think, but a plus 18 points in the paint. But Naz was absolutely vital to what the Timberwolves were doing once Rudy left the game, and he ended up with 11 rebounds in those 35 minutes. His minutes off the bench were huge. And again, the timely shots for Naz Reid were monstrous, kind of stepping in for Rudy Gobert once he left after putting up 7 points and 12 boards in 20 minutes. My second big thing is the Timberwolves' active defense. And again, like, obvious caveats here. We're talking about the Kings. Like, I feel like I have to acknowledge that. But again, as I say so often, you got to play and you got to beat the teams that are in front of you. Like, we'd be having a completely different conversation if the Timberwolves lost to the Sacramento Kings, which they did, a couple of weeks ago. But they beat them 3 out of 4 times this season in their matchups, and you got to beat the teams that are in front of you. But Sacramento's the 29th ranked offense in the NBA. Still, Minnesota did a really good job defensively outside of the first quarter and maybe some brief stretches in the third quarter that were pretty rough. But overall, Minnesota ratcheted up the defensive pressure in the second quarter. I believe they had 12 steals for the game. I think they might have had 6 steals in the second quarter alone. There were a couple of really nice Dante steals that were kind of tide turning. Rob Dillingham had a really nice play that led to a Dillingham bucket when the Wolves were down. Dillingham got the steal off a Schroeder pass. DiVincenzo hits the bucket on the fast break. The Kings have to call a timeout. That was a big play. And then DiVincenzo had a couple of steals later in the quarter. And they had a couple timely steals both in the third and fourth quarter as well. I think they only had 2 per quarter, but they were at pivotal moments. I mean, really, the one in the fourth quarter, I can't recall who it was, but it basically sealed the game for Minnesota, getting an easy bucket in the open floor. And it was really just the activity level on defense. Even up like 12 in the final 2 minutes, Minnesota was actually rotating crisply, moving their feet, hands in passing lanes, like stuff that, and like, it's a little tough to pat him on the back now, seeing this after it doesn't happen in, some of these other games. Like, you go back to the Phoenix loss last week and some of these other games. Like, if they could show that intensity and that want to more of the time, could we be talking about a team that's 20-6 instead of 17-9? And it feels very different. I mean, the short answer is yes. This has been the case for a lot of the Chris Finch teams over the past, like, I get it, consecutive conference finals, but could there be more for this team, especially this year? Early last season, was there effort problems? Yes. And that wasn't an issue in this game. And so I guess I do want to pat them on the back when we do see a nearly wire to wire. Again, not early, but we'll call it starting in the second quarter. Like, there was some sloppiness early third quarter, but ultimately the final 3 quarters, Minnesota played really hard. And again, we saw that until the final horn. Like, they were moving their feet, jumping passing lanes, defending with their feet, not with their hands, not reaching, not grabbing, not committing an absurd amount of fouls, which we've seen at times. And they did actually commit a fair amount in this game, but not nearly as bad as what we've seen at times with this team. That's really significant to see that level of effort all the way to the final horn. And it was a big reason why it ended up being a 14-point advantage for Minnesota when it was all said and done, because they continued to defend past the point when Sacramento was trying on offense. Like, the Kings just gave up offensively, kind of the 4 or 5 minute mark there in the fourth quarter. The Timberwolves just kept defending. And for, like, if you squint, it looks like versions of the last 2 years when Minnesota's defense was, the Nikhil defenses, when he was a big part of what they were doing. And honestly, it was that level of activity. I thought that made a real difference as Minnesota was pulling away in this game. I have one more big thing to hit, and then we'll dig in on a couple of rotation items as well before we get to individual studs and duds. So we'll do all that here next as we move right along. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Wayfair. The holidays always show up faster than we expected. If you're still putting together gifts, last-minute decor, or getting your home ready for guests, Wayfair has you covered. Whether you need a quick room refresh, new bedding, or those final seasonal touches, Wayfair makes it easy to get what you need fast. Wayfair truly is your one-stop shop for everything home, with decor, furniture, kitchen essentials, and gifts for every style and every budget, all delivered quickly and easily. The selection is huge. Bedding, decor, kitchen gear, kids' room updates. I was able to find everything in one place. Anytime I go to Wayfair, it's all there. Anything you order from Wayfair is going to instantly refresh your space without a big project. It's perfect for gifting as well. Again, if you're still gifting this time of year, which I am, they've got tons of options and something for everyone on any budget. And there's no crazy delivery fees and there's no stress when you're ordering through Wayfair. Get last minute hosting essentials, gifts for all your loved ones, and decor to celebrate the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is also brought to us by our title sponsors at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into that moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. Keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. There's no line yet for the Wolves game. They don't play again until Wednesday. But check out Monday Night Football tonight. And, of course, football as we head to the home stretch, the final 3 weeks of the NFL season as well. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen of the day. And, of course, thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We could not do it without you. Those of you that make us your first listen every day, we greatly appreciate it. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Wolves with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. You can go to LockedOnWolves.supercast.com. That's LockedOnWolves.supercast.com to check, or you could check the link in the show notes to learn more. We'll talk later in the show about how you can get your first month free of the Everydayer Club. Again, head to LockedOnWolves.supercast.com to get yourself signed up today. All right. My third big thing. So first thing was Naz Reid and the role he played in the absence of Rudy Gobert, especially in this game, but really overall, Naz just played a really good game. The active defense, the activity level in the passing lanes, the effort level that they played with on the defensive end of the floor, especially late in the game when the tide turned a bit in the second quarter and then also in the fourth quarter for Minnesota, I thought was huge. My third big thing is Jaden McDaniels and Julius Randle both stepping up big and driving the Timberwolves offense with no Anthony Edwards. Obviously, Julius Randle becomes the hub, and he already kind of has been a hub for Minnesota for much of this season. A lot of point forward, a lot of offense flowing through Randle, even with Anthony Edwards on the floor. But the last couple times out against the Warriors and against the Kings, you know that Randle is a key focus of the opposing team's scouting report on Minnesota. And both Randle and McDaniels stepped up and really kind of managed the offense. And neither one of them was efficient in this game. So, like, when we talk studs and duds, I mean, like, they're not popping off the page. We're going to talk more Bones Hyland, of course. We already talked some Naz. Like, Bones and Naz were probably the two best offensive players overall for Minnesota in this game in terms of efficiency and overall impact. Well, I shouldn't say that. Impact's not the right word, because both Randle and McDaniels were impactful in this game, despite not shooting the ball all that well. Like, Julius Randle, 9 of 21 is fine. Jaden McDaniels, 7 of 19 isn't great. So, like, you combine the two together, we're talking 16 of 40 from the field. So good, not great. And a combined 3 of 13 from outside the arc, which is not good for Randle and McDaniels together. We've seen both of them come back down to earth. Randle's evened off a little bit lately, but, you know, versus where we were at 3 weeks ago, Randle and McDaniels have both come back down to earth in terms of their three-point shooting. And, of course, it's dragged Minnesota's overall team three-point percentage down quite a bit. But they also combined to go 10 of 12 at the free throw line. And you can handle shooting a little under 50% from the field and, you know, what's 3 of 12, like 20% from three, if you're also going to shoot 10 to 12 at the line and do everything else well. And because of the attention you're drawing and, you know, the pressure you're putting on the defense in all the different isolation, I mean, like, Randle and McDaniels both had a lot of ISO touches in this game, and they were both effective. And they didn't have gaudy assist numbers either, but they were still the engine of the Timberwolves offense. Like McDaniels had only 2 assists. Everyone else in the starting lineup had at least 3, and Randle only had 3 assists. But they were the gravity that both of them played with in this game. And that's not something I've ever said about Jaden McDaniels before. But here we are. McDaniels, yes, it took him 19 shots to do it, scores 21 points again for the Timberwolves. And teams are starting to factor him into the scouting report as like a legitimate offensive threat. And, short of he was not good in that Phoenix game. He played 40 minutes and scored just 4 points and 7 shots, didn't make a 3-pointer. That was brutal. But you take that game out, and even though he's evened off a little bit outside the arc, he's still been really good throughout the month of December to this point, across what, 6 games, even including this game, 16 points a game on 54% shooting from the field. And well, that's a slight step back from what we were seeing at, for stretches early in the season. That's really effective. And when Ant's out, for him to put up 17 on 15 shots against Golden State and 21 on 19 shots against the Kings, he had 5 assists in the last game, just 2 in this one, but also multiple steals in every game except that. Well, I guess he only had 1 steal against Golden State. But multiple steals in most games over the past couple weeks, or multiple stocks, I should say, more accurately, if we want to include blocks in that. Just the activity level and the confidence with which McDaniels is playing is massive. And between Randle and McDaniels, they were the engine of the Timberwolves offense. And that's what you have to do, first of all, when you don't have a true point guard. And second of all, when Anthony Edwards is out. And we're going to talk Bones Hyland, but like Bones can't do what Bones does or what Bones did in this game if Randle and McDaniels don't put pressure on the defense the way that they did in this game. And so I thought that was really important with no Anthony Edwards for those guys to step up in the way that they did. Okay. Let's see. Anything else before studs and duds? Rotation stuff. So obviously no Conley, no Ant. The no Rudy thing really only just meant Naz was going to play more. No Conley, no Ant means that we got double-digit minutes from all 3 of Jalen Clark, Terrence Shannon Jr., to Rob Dillingham. And Dillingham turned in, I thought, his second straight strong, might be slightly too strong of a word, solid plus performance for Bones Hyland. 17 minutes against the Warriors on Friday. I thought he played really well overall. I know there was that moment when Finch was yelling at him to run a play after he actually scored a bucket. He just took a little too long to get into the set, was a little hesitant. But I thought he played really well against Golden State. And then 12 minutes against the Kings, I thought he played pretty well again. He knocked out a 3 in this game, had 3 assists and no turnovers. The Golden State game, he had no assists, 2 turnovers. But overall, if you take the last 5 games that he's played in December, Rob Dillingham has 10 assists and only 2 turnovers. I mean, we'll take the 5-to-1 ratio. I'm sure Chris Finch would take that 5-to-1 ratio any day of the week. And also, the last couple games, he's actually made some shots. 5 of 11 shooting, 1 of 2 outside the arc. Obviously, a super small sample, but it's the first time he'd seen double-digit minutes since the loss to OKC on Thanksgiving Eve, nearly 3 weeks ago. This was the first time we'd seen him get 10-plus minutes, and he did it in consecutive games, obviously due to injuries. But given that additional runway, him playing better is super important. TJ Shannon, on the other hand, has been frustrating. He was actually the only Timberwolves player to manage a minus in this game, which I say this all the time. Individual player, single game plus minus is so noisy. But when the entire team is +5 or better, and one dude's a -11, that tells you he did not have a very good game. And Shannon just kind of scuffled here. It just doesn't look comfortable right now. He had the one big game. Was it the OKC game? I think it was the OKC game right after the injury. But then besides that, it's been a rough go, and he's still going to get opportunities still. And, but the Bones Hyland piece, and I'm saving the Bones conversation for studs and duds here in a second. What happens, and perhaps we talk about this on tomorrow's show, when Conley and Ant come back, who loses? I would imagine Dillingham's getting those DNP CDs. To what level would Bones Hyland potentially take the TJ Shannon, instant offense role off the bench? Now, obviously different positions. Shannon's still he is a superior defender. He can guard more positions because he's bigger, stronger, the whole thing. But Bones has so much more offensive juice and can run the offense and do more things with, can actually be a threat with the ball in his hands, whereas TJ Shannon can be, but the consistency is not there. And of course he requires the pace has to be faster. He's not going to actually initiate offense. They don't play the same position, but the overall instant offense and what I would say the juice off the bench role, Bones Hyland likely is going to give you more in that right now. At least he has over the last couple games than TJ Shannon has in obviously different levels of opportunity. But I think there's a real shot that Shannon and Dillingham lose rotation minutes. Hyland keeps them, and Conley still has a role in the rotation. And I don't think you can take Jalen Clark out. We all know the stat about playing 15 minutes or more. The Wolves don't lose when Jalen Clark plays 15 minutes or more, and that's still the case. So interesting to see how that's going to shake out. And perhaps I'll talk a little bit more about it on Tuesday and or Wednesday show. The Wolves don't play again until Wednesday night. So some time this week to dig into some of those potential rotation things. Let's close the show today by talking studs and duds. Then we'll peek ahead to the upcoming schedule. We'll do all that here next to close out the show. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Rougiette. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress, I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rougiette makes it easy to get started. You just connect with the board-certified doctor 100% online. No awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit Rougiette, RUGIET.com/LockedOnNBA to get 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNBA. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNBA so they know that we sent you. Rougiette, stop making excuses and start making moves. All right, let's close today by talking individual studs and duds. I mentioned this earlier. Like, I think it's pretty obvious who the first two we got to talk about are. I think it's Naz Reid and Bones Hyland. Naz, again, with the increase in minutes, what he had to do offensively, the timeliness of some of those threes late, to end up with 11 boards is huge after Rudy left the game and Minnesota had to seal off the paint. He does that in a little bit of a different way than Rudy Gobert, but I mean, Naz kind of stuffed the stat sheet himself. 20 points, 11 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Really good minutes from Naz Reid in this game. We already talked about him earlier. Bones Hyland, I just talked about a little, but to give him his due a little bit more, like 18 points on 10 shots, got fouled on a three-pointer, made all 3 free throws early in the fourth quarter at a pivotal point after the Kings had just cut it to 1 point again, right at the start of the quarter. Hit a three-pointer. I think he had a late three-pointer that in the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken, was his make from the field. 5 assists and 2 turnovers for Bones Hyland, which we'll take that ratio from Bones Hyland, I think. And like just gives that extra kind of oomph that the offense is missing when he's not on the floor. It's weirdly enough, like I would never describe the way Bones Hyland plays as calm, but it's a little more under control still than what Rob Dillingham does. And I think Bones is not like that far off of what Rob Dillingham should be already. And I would still say, even at this moment, and I certainly would have said a year ago, that Dillingham's ceiling is much higher than Bones Hyland. But like Rob Dillingham should be able to provide what Bones Hyland has. And there's that extra juice, that extra punch that Bones has given that is super important for this team. And I don't know what that says about the roster building, and that's a whole other conversation. But in this game, Bones Hyland was really, really important and played very well. 18 points on 10 shots. We'll take that any day of the week. 5 assists, 3 boards, and a block in this game for Bones Hyland. Really nice minutes. We talked about Julius and McDaniels already. I thought they were very important, but I don't know that I would give them studs in this game because of the inefficiency offensively. I think, the couple silly turnovers late. Well, actually, Randle only had 1 turnover. It was a silly travel late in the game. I don't know. I think I'd probably go DiVincenzo still because of the stuffing the stat sheet that he provided. It was a unique stat line. 18 points on 18 shots, so not super efficient. He was 3 of 9 outside the arc. He was one of just 2 Timberwolves players along with Naz to actually like shoot decently, 33%. I'm calling decent in this case on volume. I mean, Dillingham made his only attempt, but otherwise you had Bones was 1 of 4. You had McDaniels 1 of 7, Randle 2 of 6. And DiVincenzo turned in 6 assists to only 1 turnover, plus 4 steals and 2 blocks. So 6 stocks for DiVincenzo, plus a 6-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. And of his 6 rebounds, 3 of them were offensive. So again, activity level, he was second in plus minus of the team at a plus 15. So I'd go Dante as my third stud in this game after Naz and Bones Hyland. Again, McDaniels and Randle played well, vital to the outcome for Minnesota. Yeah, but I think I got to go with Dante because of the stat stuffing, the impressive line in the box score, and the timeliness of some of those plays. I mentioned the steal in the second quarter. He had another big one in the fourth quarter as well, among his 4 steals. All right. Duds, I guess just TJ Shannon. I thought Jalen Clark played fine still, even though, he did his typical 2 points on 3 shots. He didn't give you anything offensively, but he was good defensively. TJ Shannon there was nothing. There wasn't even empty calories. There was just nothing from Shannon in this game, unfortunately. So in 13 minutes, 2 points on 3 shots also. But again, the minus 11, just kind of not great decision-making, doesn't give you much on defense right now. The player in theory and the flashes that we've seen are much better than what we've kind of actually gotten in reality here over the last few appearances for Shannon, and especially in this game. So he gets the lone dud in this one. All right. So Minnesota right now sits at 17-9, and perhaps we'll break this down a little bit over the next couple of days. But I said before the season, my prediction is Minnesota would only have 7 losses on New Year's Eve. Now, obviously that can't happen. They have 9. But given the upcoming schedule, I don't know how far off I'm actually going to be, even though it's been frustrating. They'll be favored at home against Memphis on Wednesday. They'll, obviously be underdogs at home against OKC Friday, even though the Thunder did finally lose again. And then Milwaukee, New York. If they get next to these next 4 at 3-1, I mean, it's probably likely to be 2-2. They're probably not favored at home against the Knicks. But if they go 3-1, they'll be 20-10 headed into Christmas against Denver, Brooklyn, Chicago, Atlanta. That should be another, hopefully just 1 loss. I think best case right now, they have 11 losses on New Year's Day, and I had hoped they'd have 7. They're not far off. Sitting here right now at 17-9, Minnesota's 6th in the West, but they're 2.5 games clear of Phoenix, who's 7th. They're only 1 behind the Lakers, and they're tied in the win column. They're only 1 game behind Denver in the win column. Denver's the 2 seed right now. Obviously, number of games played right now is a little bit funky. The Lakers have slid just a little here recently. They still have a point differential much worse than Minnesota's. The Wolves' point differential is better than the Lakers and Spurs, and those teams are both within a game and a half of Minnesota. So they're, a game and a half out of the 4 seed in the West, sitting here as of this recording, and that's the Spurs, who they do currently have a tiebreaker against, although we'll see how that shakes out now that Wemby's back. So they're right in the thick of things in the West. Still a reasonable upcoming schedule. A winnable game against Memphis to hopefully continue this stretch. If they win Wednesday, they'll have won 8 out of 9, heading into a showdown with the Thunder at 8:30 Friday night at Target Center, also a prime video game. So a big Friday night matchup against OKC. So pretty intriguing week ahead. Another one with just 2 games up until Sunday when they host Milwaukee. We'll keep an eye on the injuries this week. Talk a little bit tomorrow about some rotation stuff, and then Wednesday, of course, preview the Grizzlies matchup. We've not yet seen Memphis this season, so we'll talk about that on Wednesday's show. That's all I got for you today. A big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. A reminder that if Locked On Wolves made your Spotify Wrapped, you can prove it on social media to secure a free month of the earlier mentioned brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and we will drop you a code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel. So go ahead and sign up. Again, to do that, you just need to tag the Locked On Podcast National, the podcast network account on any platform. If you just want to sign up for the Everydayer Club, you can head to lockedonwolves.supercast.com and sign up there. Of course, this show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.